Safety and security I take very seriously as a solo female nomad. In this video, I'll share some of the strategies and techniques I deploy to keep myself as safe as possible on the road. But before I do that, I just want to say thank you to all of my subscribers. You guys are great and I really appreciate the subscriptions. If you are new here, my name is Vic and I'm a full-time nomad currently traveling around the North American continent. So with that all said, let's get back to the video. Oh, one more thing. I hope you'll stay tuned to the end of the video because I have some scary stories to share with you. So today I think I'd like to talk about travel and parking strategies, then self-defense, then asset management. On travel days, I like to limit my travel time to 2 to 3 hours, 4 hours max. For me, lesser driving time means lesser risk of exhaustion or distraction-driven mistakes on the road. I like to arrive safe. I also like to travel in the morning hours, getting to my target location by midday. That leaves me plenty of time to scope out that location. If I don't feel safe, my gut instinct kicks in, I leave. I also like arriving early because it leaves me plenty of time to do some work and also explore the location. I like to avoid the interstates. I'm really not interested in rushing around from place to place. My nomad experience is about enjoying the journey as much as the destination. So far, I've never had an issue on the back roads. I have had issues on the interstate. Last winter, while driving in Utah, a very dodgy looking truck, quite dirty, drove me off the road. Fortunately, my Baja rig handled it very well. I immediately drove into the shoulder and then I promptly drove up a hill out of the grips of the trucker. And I didn't get back on the road until my blood pressure was at acceptable levels. And I was going the speed limit. I just think the trucker didn't want to go around me. What's really weird is that in my experience so far, I generally have found truckers to be extraordinarily respectful on the road and at service areas. I also like to avoid driving in problematic weather. I learned my lesson last winter on my way to Moab and driving over a mountain pass in the grips of a blizzard. Unbeknownst to me, mind you. Fortunately, I made it alive, and the Baja rig handled it well. I try to park in a manner that lessens risk of somebody hitting me, particularly in the wee hours of the night. For example, last winter while boondocking out in the Arizona desert, I positioned my rig between two very large, interesting cactuses. I also try to park in a manner that leaves me an escape route, certainly from the nose out, but if I can manage it, I also like to have an escape route from the rear. I do have a pretty hefty custom front bumper, if need be to engage in bumper car activity. I also carry a couple of orange safety cones. Depending upon my location, I like to put them out around the rig. It's all about minimizing risk of someone hitting my rig, particularly in the night. And I endeavor to avoid publicly revealing my exact location, particularly if I'm out boondocking alone in the desert or, for example, in a national forest. And that includes titling my Starlink internet and my cellular mobile accounts in a masculine manner. I don't want anyone picking up those signals to assume that there's a solo female nomad in my rig. So let's talk self-defense. I am licensed and training certified in a number of states in the United States, including through reciprocity, to carry weapons. To notify, I have a number of stickers on the back of my rig which should give the reasonable person notice of the likelihood that the person inside my rig is armed and well trained to respond defensively or offensively as appropriate. And I also have various non-traditional weapons throughout my rig in strategic locations, as well as on my person. And moreover, I have security cams all around my rig, which are working 24/7 and upload videos automatically into my cloud-based account. Fortunately, I find that most people in the lifestyle are extremely respectful, for example, not entering your camp without permission to do so. That said, I have experienced a few dodgy characters that have required action on my part, including potential deployment of my legal skills. Last winter, I spent most of my time out in the Arizona desert and also in Utah. In some cases, I camped by myself with the closest rig approximately 1 mile away. On one such night, I heard in the wee hours of the night someone jiggling the door handles of my truck. Fortunately for them, that's as far as it went. And I do recall the next morning seeing dirty handprints on the truck doors. Also, my rig is typically ready to move, for example, in the wee hours of the night, should I feel the need to do so. And I have several people who continually track me by different means. These people also know my location at any given time. And should someone dodgy approach me on foot or by vehicle, I will capture that information and immediately send it to those trusted people. And where animals are concerned, I do what most nomads do. I cook away from my rig and I store food in a bear box or other appropriate container. And for asset management, I keep my truck in good working order with regular oil changes and checkups. It's my tiny home. I need to make sure it's always in good working order. I carry very little cash and rely primarily on bank cards and credit cards. And where those accounts are concerned, I have implemented very strict daily withdrawal limits, so to minimize the risk of a large withdrawal should dodgy behavior occur. And it also leaves me valuable time to shut those accounts down before that happens. And for gadgets, and I have done a separate video on my must-have Nomad Life gadgets, I keep my work computer and my filming equipment in a heavy-duty bolted-down safe. Some friends have suggested that I get another dog. I love dogs. I would love to get another dog. That said, having a dog will restrict my travels and places that I want to go and things that I want to do. So for the time being, I think I'll forgo. But that said, don't be surprised if in the not too distant future you see a furry friend added to my journey. So now, having been on the road for 1+ years, I think the extra caution sort of / high risk areas based on my experience to date are service stations, rest areas, and in some cases big box store parking lots. So last winter I was in Nevada and I needed to get some diesel, so I pulled into a service station, and fortunately when I do pull into these types of areas, service stations, rest areas, I do not get out of the truck and unlock the driver's side door. The other doors are always locked without first making sure that I have a weapon, I have my credit card, bank card, I have my phone, and obviously my keys. And even then, I don't get out until I've done a visual check, 360-degree check of my area to see if there's anything awry that, you know, should raise concern. So in this particular service station, when I pulled in, I pulled up to the diesel pump, I shut down the truck. I noticed that there was only one other vehicle at the station. It was a small white van. And, you know, while I was getting everything ready before, you know, getting out of the rig and unlocking the driver's side door, a man walked up to my rig and stood directly in front of the truck and, you know, blocking my path essentially. Now, the thing about this fellow is that he looked really nice and he was clearly trying to engage with me. So I could see how, you know, a normal person would just, you know, think, oh, he wants to ask me a question. Maybe he's interested in my rig. And, you know, he looks super friendly. So I'll get out and engage with him. Well, because he was standing in front of my rig blocking my path, it didn't sit right with me. So it prompted me to check my cameras. I have cameras circling my rig. And when I checked the rear camera, I noticed that there was another man standing behind my rig. And, you know, for me, it very much appeared that the guy was hiding behind my rig. So obviously, once I saw that, I just went into high drive, started up the truck, and made very clear to the guy in front that I was going to get out of Dodge, so he better get the hell out of my way, which of course he did. And then I proceeded to just leave the service station, and I don't know, I probably drove down the road for about 5 minutes, you know, checking that nobody was following me, which was the case. And as I continued, I started to get angry because I thought to myself, you know, this is unacceptable and I need diesel. And anyway, it prompted me to turn back to the gas station. I did go back, and the men were gone. The van was gone. I assumed that they were in the van. And I went inside and told the clerk of, you know, what had occurred. And they were nice. They came out and waited while I filled my tank. And, you know, then I went on my merry way, and I didn't see the van or the men again while I was in Nevada or to date. So I think the real takeaway from this experience is, when I thought back on it, was how fast something very terrible could have happened. I mean, they could have obviously taken my rig, which is, I think, probably what the objective was, but they could also have, I don't know, you know, I could have gotten injured. Who knows? I could have gotten killed, and it would have happened so fast. You know, you're distracted when you pull into a service station. You're distracted by, you know, getting your payment method out to put into the pump facility. You're grabbing the pump. You're, you know, unlocking your gas tank if you've got a locked one. You know, you're doing all this stuff that it only takes a few seconds for somebody to jump out and engage in problematic behavior. So I'm fortunate that I have that procedure, that I take extra caution. It saved me, I believe. And I have to thank, I can't recall where I heard about applying these kinds of procedures, but it must have been a YouTube at some point in all the YouTubes that I've watched, where someone talked about, you know, taking extra care when you get out of your truck. You know, make sure you have, for example, on your person, all those things that you would want if your truck were taken. What would you want to have on your person? You know, some people will just get out and they'll have their keys. They won't have their phone. They won't have necessarily, you know, a few payment methods. They won't necessarily have a weapon. So definitely call to caution to take extra care. And I think for solo females, it's particularly important to be extraordinarily careful. That's the last thing I'll say on that. I hope my story was helpful. Be careful out there. And in particular, as I mentioned, I do think service stations and big box store parking lots, not all, but, you know, some, and rest areas are high risk. So with all that said, you might ask me, do I feel safer in the nomad lifestyle as compared to living in a sticks and bricks? I do feel safer in the nomad lifestyle. You see, living in a sticks and bricks can present its own host of problems, including trespassers and problematic neighbors and the like. Fortunately, in the nomad lifestyle, when such problems occur, typically all I need to do is depart, leaving the problem in my rearview mirror. Anyway, those are my thoughts on safety and security risk minimization, and I've provided most of the techniques, not all, that I utilize in my nomad lifestyle. If you have any recommendations, I would love to hear them. Please put them in the comments. Thanks all for joining this week's video. I hope you have a great week, and I hope to see you in next week's video. Take care. Bye.